ladies and gentlemen. We're very happy to see
by his high moral character and majestic presence, the man I'm referring to, in them rather vague and general terms, is myself. I'm opposed to formal introductions as a rule, because you never know which way that frog will jump. I prefer to do it myself, where I can take the facts and twist them the way I want to. I was born modest, but I got over it. I was introduced in Virginia City, that territory, by a young miner. That he had to draw lots to see who was going to get the honor of introducing me. And he strode out onto that stage and he said, "I do not know that man. I only know two things about that man. Number one, he's not in jail. And number two, I don't know why." That observation floated over me for the whole evening of that performance. And by the end of the evening, I was wondering why myself. Well, you can excuse a young miner for being so tempestuous, but you wouldn't expect something like that from a lawyer. I was working the New England Society, the wonderful event of the year, and this lawyer got up and he said, "Oh, we have such a rare treat this evening. We've got Mark Twain, a humorist, and he's funny." Well, I was spellbound with that majestic introduction, so skillfully constructed, so well put together, so well deserved. But there that lawyer stood with his hands in his pockets. He had his hands jammed down so far it looked like he was scratching his knees. And I thought I wouldn't let that dog lie. I said, "Well, yeah, Mark Twain, a humorist, and he's funny. That might be a little rare. But I think we have something even more rare than a humorist is funny. We got a lawyer standing there with his hands in his own pockets." I think I won that one. I was born Samuel Clemens, 1835, Florida, Missouri. I was an awful sickly child, and I come 6 weeks early. Caught my mother unprepared. I spent the first several months of my life in borrowed baby girl clothes. Now that's no way to start out life. You could start out life as a boy on the wrong foot that way. First 7 years of my life was spent taking very expensive allopathic medicines. If health was wealth, I probably was the poorest little boy in Florida, Missouri. My folks got so used to me going into my death watch and dying, they could go to sleep. Well, they got to the point where my father's business was almost as bad as my health. And he heard of a town upriver, a town called Hannibal. Hannibal was an upcoming town. Why, it had maybe 60 families, some of them living in houses. Steamboat coming in there twice a week, bringing in products for the people and taking the products up from that rich ground that was around there. And it was decided by my mother and father that we would go to Hannibal. Well, they loaded up the wagon and they headed for Hannibal. And the first night when they camped, Mother counted the children. There was one child short. They locked me in the house.
I don't know.
Now I think mothers and fathers, when they go away on a trip, they ought to count their children. That's just a social note. Well, I should have been a pessimist, but there's nothing in this world worse than a little boy pessimist. So I chose to be a cynic. And then living me in that locked house planted the first good seeds of being a cynic. Oh yeah. Oh, pardon me. I have to have a little drink here. Well, we got to Hannibal. I was 4.5 years old. Mother enrolled me in school. Cost $2 a week to go to school in Hannibal. We had a German teacher. And I just took to learning and spelling and reading just like a duck takes to water. Just like breathing. It was so easy for me, much to the chagrin of the older idiots in that school. And I come home all excited and out of breath or exhausted and just wore to the bone. And my mother made the decision that I should spend 1 week out of every month down at my Aunt Patsy and Uncle John's farm down in Florida. One day, my mother loaded up the wagon to go down to Uncle John and Aunt Patsy's to make the arrangements, and I was supposed to come down with Father the next day. Well, the next morning, my father arose. He ate his breakfast. He saddled his horse. He locked the house. Need I say more? He rode all the 35 miles to Florida. Mother said, "Well, where's Sam?" Oh, he said, "I plumb forgot the boy." Well, those seeds of the cynic got watered well. that first day. My father never hugged me. Not once in his life did he ever hug me. He was a proper man. My father's table was a very simple table. Some nights, no more than cornbread and buttermilk. And after supper, my father would sit in a straight chair and he'd read the classics to us, Shakespeare, Holmes. But my Uncle John's had a farm table, and he had a table fit for a king. And he was a hugging man. Oh, Uncle John was a splendid man. And at night, after the chores and the supper was over with my Uncle John, he'd sit in a rocking chair, and he'd tell jokes, and he'd laugh, and he'd look at me, and he'd say, "Little Sam, my bucket is empty. Why don't you tell me about your day?" My Uncle John was the first man to recognize I love to be the center of attraction. And I'd get up there, and I'd explain what I had been involved in that day, and I'd exaggerate and lie and lie and lie. And he'd laugh, and his blonde hair would come down over his eyes. Oh, we just had such a great time. My Uncle John was one of the finest men I ever knew. Uncle John had slaves. Yeah, he did. He had 15, 20 slaves. And the advocate and the man that all the children paid attention to was Daniel. Everybody called him Uncle Daniel, and we just loved him. And you never knew they were slaves. We were just like that. Just like that. Now, you never heard anybody say anything against slaves. Not the waterfront philosophers, the newspapers, even from the pulpit of the church, they would say nothing against slaves. But it was wrong. And President Lincoln freed the black man. He freed the white man too. Well, after supper, sometimes we would go down to Uncle Daniel's cabin. All of us children, Uncle Daniel get out his fiddle and play his fiddle. He played some banjo. And I think that's where I developed my first love of music. Oh, I played the guitar some. And my sister, Pamela, she taught me how to play the piano. And some of the music that I loved all my life was the Jubilee music that I learned down at Uncle Daniel's cabin. Uncle Daniel not been the noblest man I ever knew. Years later, when I was telling lies called books, I changed Uncle Daniel's name to Jim. And I put him on a raft with Huckleberry Finn hunting for freedom down the river. I never put my Uncle John's name in the book. I only put in rapscallions. what my mother would book. My mother, bless her soul, spent most of her life trying to save me, chasing me all over town, trying to put butterflies on my wings. And I'd sneak right out. Oh, I tell you, I was something else. But you can't blame a man for being what he is. You can't blame him at all. I believe God created man at the end of the work week when he was tired. And I think the only reason he created man at all, he was so disappointed in the monkey. But he practiced and practiced, and he made millions and millions and millions of idiots. Till he got it just right, and they turned into congressmen. And the leftovers were school board members and councilmen. Hannibal was one of the wonderfulest towns of all. Growing up as a boy, with the beautiful and the grand Mississippi River, drinking from 33 states and 2 Canadian provinces. Oh, it was a wonderful place for a boy. We had boats, steamboats and rafts, barges. That river was just nothing but a hustle bustle. Oh, it was nothing even compared to the railroad. When I learned to swim, of course I learned to drown first. I must have drowned 3 or 4 times. And they'd drag me up and take me up to the house, and Mama would pump me out and inflate me and send me right back. The neighbor lady would get over there and whine at Mama. She'd say, "Oh, Mrs. Clemens, that poor boy's going to drown, and you just living 100 yards from that river. Oh, that poor boy's going to..." And my mother'd say, "Hush. Don't vex yourself, honey. Don't vex yourself. Anybody that's born to be hung and never going to drown..." After I mastered that swimming, Tom Blankenhorn and I, we swim maybe quarter mile out to that river. Same swim Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn made many years later. We'd go out where they had one of them rafts. Now the American is the greatest swearer in the country. And if they're the greatest, the raftsmen are the kings. And we'd swim out there, and they'd reach down and they'd pick us up there like a bag of drowning cats and flop us on that there raft. We'd get out our pipes, we'd hold them up, they'd give us some tobacco. I mastered pipes, cigars, when I was about 7. I tried to master chewing tobacco, but all I got was green and got to throwing up. Now that's too colorful for a boy. We thought that was an adult habit, throwing up. Well, them raftsmen, every once in a while they get into a disagreement. Oh, and they get their hands up and they go round and round and round. Often as not, it was not no more than a cussing contest. And I think they just did that for our benefit, to further our education. I never let schooling interfere with my education. Well, when a steamboat would get close to Hannibal, that pilot up there in that bring box, he'd lean out to the fireman and he'd say, "Throw on the pitching butter, we're coming into Hannibal." Now you see, they put the pitch in the butter and that'd make the smoke black. And everybody know that that boat's coming into Hannibal. And you could hear the call in town. It'd say, "Steamboats are coming! Steamboats are coming!" And everybody, the whole town, would run down to the river. And, well, that was particularly good if you happen to be in church. That preacher, he'd be up there, and he'd be telling us boys, not what you did bad this week, but what you're going to do bad next week. And he'd give you that fire and that brimstone, and all of a sudden, steamboats coming, and that church would just empty, there would be nobody, and just lock that preacher in there like that. Well, he finally got so smart, he'd take that collection right at the beginning of the sermon. Or he'd get you 2 blocks away for that tithe. Even hit a Catholic family once in a while where he was at. Yeah. John Hannix was a free black man. He was a tradesman. And you could frequently see John Hannix down by the river waiting for a steamboat. He always was almost the first man in town to spot that black smoke. Most of the time he'd be under his wagon smoking a pipe or a cigar if he could afford it, sipping lemonade. Had a great big dog, huge dog, great big head, long hair, looked like a little bear. Well, maybe it was a little bear. No, I think it was a dog. And that dog would be there sleeping. John always had a handy by a stick. The minute he'd reach, grab that stick, there was a state of alertness. Well, just like when Grandma's rocking in the rocking chair, and that cat's sleeping there with that tail going back and forth. Grandma kind of, that kind of alertness. John, he'd throw back, and he'd throw that stick way out into that river. And that dog would take off like a comet. And he'd swim downstream, and he'd clump that stick right in his mouth. And he'd turn back, and he'd swim upstream and upstream. He was an idiot dog. It never once occurred to that dog to swim to shore and walk down. He was an idiot dog, but a faithful dog, I want to tell you. We'd come up on shore, he'd get this, I bet he had a gallon and a half of Mississippi River water in him. And he'd start to shake it, he'd just soak John Hennings. We always figured that that's the way John Hennings took his bath. He always smelled like a dog. We would be at Uncle Daniel's cabin. Uncle Daniel would always end up the night with the same story. Story about the man with the golden arm. Story is this man with a golden arm died. And they buried him, which is conventional. And some grave robbers got in there and stole that golden arm. Well, that made him mad. He come out of the ground. Now, it shouldn't have bothered with him because he couldn't even scratch with it. And he went out and he said, "Who's got my golden arm? Who's got my golden arm?" And there ain't nothing spookier than a man. Who's got my golden arm? Can you get it? First time I heard that story, I peed my pants. Did you? Hannibal, ladies and gentlemen, was a boy's paradise. Oh, it was a boy's paradise. Down in there between Lover's Leap, Bluff, and Holiday Hill. Oh, it certainly colored. It colored me. If I'd been born inland, I suppose I might have been as plain as Tom Sawyer's fence. But that river kept pitching butter on my fire, and my boilers rose, and my imagination just kept going. I was a bad boy. Well, not a real bad boy, but a mischievous boy. We'd get up on Holiday Hill, us boys, before we went to school. We could see maybe 300, we could see a mile. Well, sometimes one of the boys would say 2 miles. We could see 2 miles in all directions. We could see the forests over there on the Illinois side, and they was waving to us because we were just taking our last smoke before school. And they'd say, "Come on over! Come on over! Skip school!" Well, we did skip school a lot. When I was 8 years old, I had convulsions for 3-4 years. And I kind of got out of it, but I by then knew that I could turn a convulsion into a day off of school. When I got ready for one of my performances, I'd go out that night and I'd get me some worms. And I'd be in bed, my little body just shaking. My mother grabbed me up. She said, "Sam, I know you're just pretending. You're just pretending because you don't want to go to school." And then I'd open my mouth and let the worms crawl out. Dandy. Except I found out on the day that I'd stay home from school from the convulsion, but Mama wouldn't let me go out and play. And what good is a day off when you can't go out and play? So I dropped that after a while. Tom Blankenship and I used to borrow a raft. We'd take that raft out there to Sly Island. We'd get ourselves some coffee and corn poke, smoke our pipes and practice bragging. We'd always take that raft back. We'd just borrow it. Then one day, Don Sutter and I, we borrowed a raft, and my friend and Tom Blankenship, they borrowed some red paint. They painted that raft red. Oh, we just had a dandy time. We got ready to take that raft back. We figured out how the man gonna recognize his raft. It's red. We didn't want to steal it. So we just borrowed it permanently. We put a sail on it. We called it Cecilia, after our favorite steamboat. Oh, we had a grand time on that raft, but every once in a while, it'd be so hot that was too much work. And we knew a swimming hole down Bear Creek. Now, Bear Creek kind of runs through one side of Hannibal. Of course, we swim naked. And it was against the law to swim naked in Hannibal. We all knew that. There was a sign right there that said no naked swimming. 22-444. But we didn't care. What are you going to do to an 8-year-old boy, naked boy? Say, hey, I got a big-ass kid here. Send for his parents. Throw him in that back cell with that murderer and that lawyer. Come to think of it, keep him away from that lawyer. One day I was swimming naked, and I heard some giggling. There was some girls back at that. Oh, I was so embarrassed. I had dreams about that. I was never so embarrassed in my life. And, well, I'll tell you about that a little later on. Oh, that was terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Now, late at night, sometimes Tom Blank and Ship would come over. I'd steal out the window. And we'd go down south to McDonald's Cave. Now there was 4 or 5 miles of cave down there. Oh, you get lost in that cave. Tom and I, we built a big bonfire out there in the mouth of that cave. That was keeping any pack of wolves away. And then we talk real loud. Now everybody know that wolves don't like to eat talking food. And every once in a while we take our torches and we go right into that dark, deep cave. We go right in, well, we go in there 20 feet. 15 feet. Well, we were in that cave 5 feet a good many times. Mostly we stood in the mouth of that cave. Because you see, there was a little dead girl in that cave. Dr. McDowell of St. Louis, his little daughter got killed in an accident, tragic accident. He put her in that there cave, thinking that she turned to stone like a stalactite or something. Tom and I, we'd stand out there night after night pondering, what are you going to do with that little girl if she turns to stone? You going to put her out there in the garden, make a fountain? Put her in the hallway, hang umbrellas on her little arms? Well, we all thought that Dr. McDonald was just plumb crazy. And we weren't afraid of that little girl. We just respected her privacy. My father only spanked me twice. He'd get to whipping on me. And I got down and declared that was the worst whooping in the history of man. That was the worst mistake I ever made. Because from that point, he turned corporal punishment over to mother. My mother could raise blisters on my butt just walking down the room with evil intentions. She was very good at it. She She should have been, because I give her lots of practice. The fine for carving on your desk at school was $3. Now, $3 in them days was a lot of money. Man could raise a family, build a house on $3 a week. The alternative punishment was a public birching. And them teachers, they wanted to prove to the townfolk that they was good teachers and they was earning their money, and boy, they just lay it on you. I mean, lay it on you. In no time, your pants smelled like a bonfire. I carved on my desk. They knew it was me. Was my desk. Was my name. What an idiot. My father, he didn't think that a public birching would be good for me, so he gave me the $3 to pay for that fine. And that's the first $3 that I ever made. My mother didn't look down on anybody in town. She didn't even look down on politicians. But there were some individuals that she didn't really want me or my little brother Henry to be around. One of them was Indian Joe. Indian Joe was a huge half-breed Indian, and he wore a red wig, courtesy of the fact that he got scalped by the Pawnee Indians when he was just a young man left to die. And Indian Joe always wore that red wig. Now, Mother didn't want me or my little brother Henry hanging around with Indian Joe, which just quadrupled his value to me. I'd get up in the morning and I'd go look for Indian Joe. And when I'd follow him, when I'd find him, I'd follow him. And I'd follow him all over town, and he never said anything. He didn't have a dog. One day he whirled around, he said, "Hey, little Sam, would you like to see my scar?" I said, "Oh, yeah. I'd love to see your scar." "Well, are you a little idiot? Can't you say, Indian Joe, can I see your scar?" "Oh, yeah, yeah. Indian Joe, could I see your scar?" Oh, he got down and he took that wig off, and I looked at that. Oh, that was so hard. It was brutal. It's the most beautiful thing I ever seen. It was something that you just don't look at with both eyes all at once, because you see, they not only removed all the hair from that man's head, they skinned the top of that right off. You could see that man's skull. And he looked up and he said, "Little Sam?" I said, "Yeah, Indian Joe." He said, "Would you like to touch it?" Oh! I said, "You mean you let me?" He said, "Course I would. Course I would. You don't think I'm not talking to some idiot here?" Well, I said, "Yeah, course I would like to touch that." And I reached down and I touched that scar. I touched that scar. And I thumped that. There was something in there. That's the finger. Right there. That's the finger I touched. That's it. You want to touch it? That's the finger I touched. You want to touch it? I want to let people that you want to touch it. That's the finger right there. I touched that scar. Oh, Indian Joe. You know what it felt like? I'll wait for you. You know what that felt like? That felt like a cat that had been run over. Laying out in that July sun for 2 weeks, and them wagons go back and forth and back and forth, and it swoosh right down flat with that head off to one side and that one out. You know the kind of cat you can put a string around it and you can go whoop, 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 whoop. And all the boys are jealous. And when you get done playing with it, then you can really trade it for something that's really valuable. Tom Blankenship was our leader. He was 3-4 years older than we were. He was already growing a brain. And his father had the very dubious honor of being the town drunk. Now, his mother was a bigger drunk than he was, but she couldn't get out of the house to prove it, so it wasn't worth anything. Tom was underfed, unwashed, unschooled, dressed in cast-off men's clothes, had that little tiny butt, and when the back of them pants just bagged when he walked, it just looked like a swinging garden gate. And he could swear magnificently. He could drop a preacher at 100 yards. He could boil the river, just boil the river from the Missouri side to the Illinois side. You could just go down there with a plate and a fork and a piece of lemon and just get them fish right now. Oh, he would, and his company was just forbidden to any respectable family in our town of Hannibal, which quadrupled his value to me. We're fixing to take a little break. I do this every once in a while to let people escape. There's nothing worse in this world than being talked to death. Now the second half will be shorter than the first half. But it'll be similar, because I do it. But I rearrange the words, so you don't have to hear the same thing twice. See, I smoke 100 cigars a month. Oh, I lie. I smoke 300 cigars a month. And this talking cuts into my smoking time. There was a cigar factory in Hannibal that greatly influenced my life. And when we take this little break, why, that'll give me a chance to smoke this cigar, drink a little whiskey. You know, next to my family, smoking cigars, whiskey and billiards are about the greatest thing that I can enjoy. Oh, I love the game of billiards. It's a great game. I'm surprised that it wasn't mentioned in Genesis. I think golf is a game for idiots. It's just a good walk ruined. But a game of billiards now, you can smoke cigars and you can drink whiskey and you can talk to your friends. Provided you don't talk about religion or politics, you'll probably have a wonderful time. I remember one night I was playing billiards and I wasn't playing too well. And I was doing most of the talking, pretty much of the drinking. And I started for home. I knew there was something wrong, because right straight away, I seen some animals that didn't belong on this continent. And that road got to weaving back and forth. It wouldn't have been for the fact that I was weaving, I'd have had some trouble, so I just cut a shot right down through the middle. I was all right. When I got home, I looked up at the house and I said, "Dear Lord, I don't pray often, but you know I'm sincere. I'll give up drinking this whiskey if you just make sure that my dear sweet wife Olivia is asleep when I get in the house." Now, I always thought that it was a wise idea to tack a bad habit on a prayer when you ask him for something. Because if God decides not to grant you your wish, you know he don't want you to give up that bad habit. Well, when I got up to the house, my troubles was not over. That house was not only a spinning, weaving, but it was a spinning. And every time I try to get that disappear off into the north, well, I thought I'll wait till I'd see that porch coming around on the southeast side. And as it swung out, I made a jump. I'm walking down the hall, trying to be as quiet as I could be, and all of a sudden, the lamps turned up. And there was my beautiful, dear, sweetheart wife, Libby. When I was in the Mideast, somebody showed me a little carving of that beautiful little woman. I fell in love with her picture before I ever met her. 2 years later, we were married. And she said, youth. She always called me youth. She said I never grew past 10. And I looked at her and I knew there was something wrong. I did never know that she had two sisters look just exactly like her. She must have kept me in a closet all that time. She said, youth, honey. I said, yes. She said, you know, I've never forbid you to drink whiskey, have I? I said, no, ma'am, no. No, you haven't. No, you haven't. She said, youth, honey, will you promise me something? I said, yes. Oh, yes, Libby, I promise you anything in the world if I can, honey. She said, youth, the next time you think you drank too much whiskey, would you ask the host for a cup of sassafras tea? And I said, oh, Libby, you know I'll do anything in the world for you, honey. I'd do anything in the world for you, honey, but when I've had enough whiskey, I can't say sassafras tea. Well, I know, folks, you probably like to go, some of you, to the privy. And I want to make this intermission short. So, I'll go smoke me a cigar, drink a little whiskey, and let's get out of back here in about 10 minutes. And some of you just might want to stretch a little bit. If you do get up, kind of know who your neighbor is, so you can find your way back to this seat. Do you like this seating arrangement? All right. You know, you can take a garden snake, just push it in here at a girl's face and they'll take off shrieking. And there's some girls that you want to have take off shrieking. And then there's some that you just want to fly like a butterfly. I was going to school one day, and I was imitating the Mortimer, the grandest and greatest steamboat in all of Mississippi. I go, we're coming into Hannibal throwing the pitching butter, and we're for sure engines. And I saw her, and my paddles froze. She had blue eyes and blonde hair. She's just the prettiest little thing I ever saw in my life. And she looked at me, even though my hands were stained from picking berries, I was barefooted. And I just strode up there boldly, and I said, could I do the honor of introducing myself? She said, yes. I said, my name is... My name's Sam Clemens. She said, yeah, I know you, Sam Clemens. She said, I just moved in across the house. I've seen you. And I said, what's your name? She said, Laura. Laura Hawkins. I said, Laura Hawkins, could I have the honor of carrying your books to school? She said, yes, you can. And we walked, and I turned my face sideways so I could see her. And like the idiot that I was, I walked right into an iron pole. Then I knew what an angel looked like, the stars that I... We got to school, we fell in love. We promised never to marry anybody else. And after we ate lunch, I gave her my apple core. You never forget the first person you fall in love with. You remember what they looked like, what they wore. Laura, she was such a sweetheart. And I changed her name to Becky. And I gave her Tom Sawyer. And I was jealous. My mother was busy chasing me around Hannibal, trying to save my soul. And she insisted that I go to church every Sunday. Now that was bad enough, but she made me go to church an hour early. And my best friend, Will Bourne, and me, we pondered. We pondered and pondered is what we going to do with that hour. Well, we come on a pretty good idea. We'd steal into the pastor's study and we'd play euchre. Now, it was against the law to play cards on Sunday in Hannibal. But we thought since it was under the auspices of the church, it'd be all right. And we were playing one day, and that preacher, we just heard his footsteps in time. And we jump up. I hid the cards, and we didn't have no pockets. I opened that closet, and there's that preacher's baptismal robe, and I put them cards in there, sleeve it, I seamed there, and I closed the door. At that same time, Will Bourne, he opened the Bible. And when that preacher come in that room, we're sitting there studying that. Oh, he said, what a wonderful thing I see. I wish every parent in every parent in the whole United States could see that two boys studying that Bible. Oh, it does wonderful in my heart. He said, boys, come on in. come on into the church. The church is about to start. Now sit with your parents. Will and I took our little hypocritical butts into church. And we're sitting there pretending to listen. And right at the end of the sermon, the preacher said, well, we're going to have baptism today. And he said, just soon as I get my baptismal robe, I will lead all the newcomers down to the river. Well, Will and I walked down to that river like condemned criminals, about to be hung. And that preacher, he walk out in that river, and he tell those converts, he say, let us pray. And them cards rose in the air on the sheen of that water. And I looked, and the first 3 cards were aces, and then there was 2 bowers. Well, everybody knew it was me. My reputation at that time was about like 3 skunks with their tails tied together doing a beauty parlor on Saturday morning. My mother grabbed up the net. She just laying on me. Just laying on me. And them good Christians standing around there said, well, little Sam, you sure had it coming that time. You sure did. You sure had that coming. Yes, you did. And my mother laying on me. Oh, I'm telling you, laying on me. It just smelled like a bonfire back there. And all of a sudden, I got tickled. Oh, and my mom, she just laying on me. And I finally just started out on a belly laugh. I couldn't control my body no more. I just collapsed down on the ground. And my mom put that switch down. She grabbed up me and she held me up there. She said, young man, what in the world is so funny? And I said, well, Mother, with a hand like that, he could have went out. I kind of modeled Tom Sawyer after myself. But I toned him down a whole lot because nobody would have believed it. When I think of church, I think of God. When I think of God, I think of heaven. One of the things I'd like to do when I get to heaven is find out who that Shakespeare really was. Last time I was in England, there was controversy who that Shakespeare was. You couldn't go any place on the street corner in the theater, no matter who was that Shakespeare. I finally went to the John Bacon Society, and I figured, well, there won't be no controversy. It was worse in there than it was out on the street. There was some of them idiots even thought John Bacon was Shakespeare. And all of a sudden, with all them people talking, there was this silence. You know how it happens just every once in a while when there was just silence? And I said, well, I reckon when I get to heaven, maybe I can find out who that Shakespeare was. And this toady Englishman, he looked at me down at the end of his nose. And he said, well, sir, I trust you won't find out who Shakespeare is in heaven. Well, I said, then you find out where you're going. Write me a report. I think I won that one too. I never understood God in the creation of man. Never understood. I think he planned and planned. I don't think he rolled out of bed one morning, picked up a hunk of dirt, and said, what am I going to do with this? I think he planned, and I think he planned that some men do wrong, because they do. And he put those two people in that garden, those two children, and he said, children, eat from all the fruit from this garden. But you see that tree right there? That most beautiful tree right there? Do not eat from the fruit of that tree. It is forbidden. Now, there's some questions that I ponder. For one thing, did those two people have a vocabulary at that time? Webster was millenniums away. Did they know what that word forbidden meant? Well, Eve is over there looking at that tree. A snake started talking to her. Now, I tell you, if a snake started talking to you, wouldn't you listen? I bet she sit there and come over here. Come over here. There's a snake talking to me. Well, I don't think it's funny. Because at that point, I think God was back there with some of his favorite angels, hiding back at a bush. And he said to his angels, watch this. That might have been some cosmic joke or something. I don't know. I don't think it's funny. I believe in God. I believe in heaven. I don't believe in the devil. I don't even believe in them horrid names that they call him. The devil, Prince of Darkness. And I think the worst word of all, Lucifer. Now I think perhaps 3/4 of the Latin people named their firstborn son Jesus. Nobody ever calls their son Lucifer. If you was opened a window in this town and you was to yell out, hey, Lucifer, come to dinner, I mean, everything would move. They would move. Well, another thing that ponders me, what are we going to do in heaven? We're up there for eternity. And eternity is a long time. I mean, it's a long time. I think we're going to be hard pressed for entertainment. How many times can you sing Amazing Grace? To say we steady and improve, steady and improve, steady and improve, steady and improve. Now, any schoolboy will tell you that sounds like hell. As a boy, I hated to be drugged to church. But one of the things that I dearly loved was the Jubilee music that I learned Uncle Daniel's cabin, and I could play some. And when I was in Elmira, New York, courting my wife, I had the temerity to play some Jubilee music for her and her folks' big mansion of a house. Oh, they were shocked. But she loved it. She loved it. She loved it all her life. When she lay dying in Florence, Italy, I stole down one night and I played a couple of her favorite songs. She said to the nurse, "Oh, set me up. Set me up. Youth is playing my favorite song, my favorite songs. He is my youth." And I never knew till about 2 hours later that I was playing her crossover to Jordan music. And I think of that very often. I do, I do. 2 weeks after my father died, shortly after I was 7, the measles came to town. There was hardly a family in Hamble that didn't have a death or bad sickness in town. My mother got so frightened about me, she locked me in the house. For 2 days I was in prison. One night I opened the window and I stole out and I went next door to home with my best friend Wilbur, and I climbed in bed, promptly caught the measles from him. We both survived, but it was bad. It was bad in that whole town for a good long while. Well, that was the straw that broke my mother's back. She put me to work as a printer in Wildcats Corner, and I was a printer. I was a printer for 10 years. And every place I went, didn't make any difference. Where I went as a printer, they said I laid the cleanest page of any place at any printer that they ever had. And, oh, I went down to St. Louis, and I was in Philadelphia, I was in Washington, D.C., I come back home, and a tragedy. My brother Orion come to town and bought the Hannibal Journal. Now, Orion was my older brother, but he was wishy-washy and a real milksop. And Mother made me be the typesetter and the printer for my brother. Orion was supposed to pay me $4.50 a month. It was good money. But he worked me like a dog, and he never paid me. And any time I wanted to get out and play some music and see the girls, well, I'd have to get Mother to do that. Well, when I was about 16, fantastic thing happened to me. Orion had to leave town. And he said, "Little brother, I have all the confidence in you. You print the paper, you typeset, you don't have to write anything. I've got all the articles is all written out for you. I got an article on Madagascar, I got an article on England, got an article on Russia, I got an article on Turkey. He said, I have faith in you, little brother. And he left for 3 weeks. What an idiot. I thought, well, I'm going to celebrate this. I took that article from Madagascar and I stuck it in that wood stove and I lit my cigar. And I thought, oh my, you look awful lonely in there. And I took that article about Russia and I took that, well, Orion never wrote anything himself. You'd have never known it was the Hannibal paper unless you look at the masthead. Oh, I was delighted. My next headline was, 2 steamboats collide at Sly Island Point. 400 lives committed to the depth. Well, everybody bought that paper. They hadn't heard about it. Because it didn't happen. I invented modern advertising. Well, I wrote that whole paper. I wrote articles, I wrote love line articles, and I sold 36 subscriptions. Orion hadn't sold a subscription for months. I was the wizard. Everybody was just remarked what a wonderful job that young boy was doing with that paper. Then Orion come to town. Come in the office and he shook out that paper and he said, well, I got to see this paper that my little brother here. And he opened that paper, and that blood just drained from his face. He said, well, I ran home, I said, Mother, I got to get out of this town. Well, he's going to kill me. And I went, as I say, to Philadelphia, New York. I come back. Well, I've been a printer for 10 years. 10 years I've been a printer, and I was still looking for what I'm going to be. And I finally got the idea how I could be a millionaire. But I had to go to South America to do that, so I'd take a steamboat. Took a steamboat out of Cincinnati on the Ohio River. Had to go down to New Orleans to get that ship out of New Orleans. I walked up on the pilot house of that, and there I met him, Horace Bixby. Horace Bixby was the grandest pilot of all the steamboat pilots in the world. Why, he could take, that river went dry, and there was enough dew on the grass, he'd take that steamboat right across there. And I walked up there and I introduced myself. He said, you say your name was Clemens? I said, yes. He said, you know Will Bourne? I said, sure, I know Will. He said, I know all them Bourne boys. All them boys are pilots on the south end, steamboat pilots. He said, their folks can be proud of them boys. He said, you say your name is Sam Clemens? I said, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, he said, Mr. Clemens, either Will Bourne is the biggest liar in the world, or somehow you survived your childhood. And I want you to sit right down there on that there bench, and I want you to tell me all about that. I don't care if you even tell me the truth. Just twist it any way you want. Well, I went back the next day to see Mr. Bixby, and one of the most wonderful things in the world happened to me. He said to me, Mr. Clemens, that river's 5 miles straight as an arrow, and it's Mark Twain water. Now, Mark Twain water is 2 fathoms, 12 feet, means safe water. He said that it's Mark Twain water, and I'd like to go out on the hurricane deck. And he said, I wonder if you could come over here, take the wheel of this here steamboat. Well, when I got my heart to quit thumping, I went over there and I grabbed the wheel of that steamboat, and I've been drowning in 10 years of printer's ink. And I said, yeah. Well, I got to New Orleans. I found $50 gold piece on the street. I figured that was a good old man. I went to Mr. Bixby and I asked him to make me a Cub pilot. And I did. I became a pilot. I became a pilot for 2 years. And then the Civil War come. And, well, I just couldn't see killing somebody I hadn't even been introduced to. Now, if it had been between friends, I had a couple friends could stand a good killing, but I went west. I went west with Borean, Oregon, my brother. It was the longest trip in the history of man. I memorized the dictionary. I got to Salt Lake City, and I got into an argument, a discussion, with a Mormon on polygamy. Oh, that man must have had 150 wives. And he said, I see there, young fella. And he picked up the Utah State Plant, the Bible. And he said, I defy you to find one word in this Holy Bible that talks against polygamy. Well, I wanted to relieve the pressure on him because his face was beat red. I said, I can. No man can serve two masters. I think I won that one too. Well, I've enjoyed telling you about my boyhood. I think my mother really enjoyed it. It never occurred to that good lady to forbid me to do them things that I did or to approve of it. Because if she would have approved of it, I'd have been suspicious. I had a reoccurring dream. Do you ever have a reoccurring dream? I dreamed that I got caught again swimming naked with them girls a hiding back of them bushes. Oh, it was dreadful. It was dreadful. It was just the worst, most worst feeling in the world. And I'd take my clothes and I'd escape. And I'd go down to the river and I'd walk out into that river with the water right up under my nose and look up in the sky and try to get my feelings back again. And I'd go back to the bank, and it was a good thing that that bank was muddy because the mosquitoes were bad, and I'd just cover myself with mud. Looked like a little licorice stick. This great big catfish swam up alongside me. Big catfish. We used to call them lawyer fish because they're all head and mouth. swimmer, he come up beside of me. He said, hey, you. I said, you talking to me? He said, you see anybody else around here, idiot? Sure, I'm talking to you. What's the matter with you? You look awful low. I said, oh yeah, I'm remembering the time those girls caught me naked. Well, he said, what's wrong with that? He said, I'm naked. I said, yeah, but you're a catfish. Well, he said, don't worry about that. He said, you were born naked. You're born naked. He said, I think you'll be all right. Matter of fact, I think you have a wonderful future. I said, how do you know that? Well, he said, I'm clairvoyant. Well, I said, Mr. Voyant. That kind of a crazy name for a catfish. But what do you see? And he said, well, you're going to be a writer. And you're going to write about the great Mississippi River. You're going to write about your boyhood. Oh, you're going to have a good time, and you're going to have a good life. And I said, thank you, Mr. Voyant. And I went back home. Well, I've had a wonderful time telling you about my boyhood. Maybe when I come back and after I do my encore, when I come back maybe 2 years from now, maybe this God-forsaken territory will be a state. We sure hoping so. I'll do my impromptu encore now. Now I want to tell all of you that an impromptu speech most generally is a farce. It's a lie. Takes me maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks, make up a good impromptu speech. There's a talk I gave not too long ago at Delmonico's restaurant. And I said something like, I know out there someplace there's an ancient maxim that assures us that man is the greatest creation of God. Now I wonder who found that out. I just approached 70 years of the escape of the gallows. I'm 70. I recognize it, but I don't realize it. Now, you know a lot of them girl-less old people, 70-year-olds, they can't wait to get out there and tell everybody how they got to be 70. And they explain and get up on that seven-tired summit with senile profanity. Well, now that I'm 70, I've got the chance. And I'll tell you, I think I've reached 70 by keeping a set of rules that would probably kill the average man. I make it a point never to smoke more than one cigar at a time. I have no other restrictions. And I smoke cheap ones. I don't smoke cigars with light bands around them. When I first started smoking 60 years ago, I paid $4 a barrel. My taste has improved slightly since. Now I pay $7 a barrel, or 8. 8 it is. Yeah, it's 8. But you can keep the barrel. Insofar as exercise, I don't take any exercise except sleeping, resting. I never could see the profit of getting tired. As far as my diet, I always had the feeling that I'd stay with anything that disagreed with me till one of us got the better of the other. Till recently, I always got the better, except I did notice last spring that I'd better stop frolicking with mince pie after midnight. Now, what I want to say is, to get to 70, you gotta make up your own rules, and then stick by them. Oh, there'll always be somebody want to change you, take all the pleasure right out of your life, but don't let them. If you can't reach 70 by a comfortable road, don't go. I suppose it's all right to break a few rules when you're young, just so you will have strength enough to break more when you get old. Now, you got to remember that the best way to learn something is through experience. Now, you take a man, grabs a hold of a bull's tail just once, he's getting 60, 70 times more experience than one that hasn't. You take a man that wants to carry a cat home by its tail, he's getting experience lasts him all his life. Never grow dim. If he wants to grab a cat, carry it by his tail, I say let him. Not easy to be eccentric, you know. Oh, this reforming, I don't know that it's all that it should be. My wife, Libby, sweetheart that she is, she's tried all our married life to get me to give up profanity. And I've tried so hard, and it just never did ever seem to work out. I just never could get it through my head that in certain trying and vexing circumstances, profanity provides a relief not even given by prayer. And as a result, if I can't swear in heaven, I won't stay. Of course, I probably won't have to worry about that. Probably be a pretty hot time down there. I was saying to my preacher, Joe Twitchell, not too long ago, about my desire to think about being cremated. Oh, he said, if I was you, I wouldn't worry about that with your chances. pretty hot time down there in the front office, I suppose. When I think of all the disagreeable, vexing people that I've known that have probably went on to the better world of heaven, I can't help but think of the man. Lived by the good book. He didn't drink whiskey. He didn't smoke cigars. Probably didn't play bullets. And he went to heaven. First person he met was somebody that he knew that he thought was long in hell. Why, it so angered him, so vexed him, he asked for directions to hell, picked up his satchel and left. So there you have it. Heaven for climate, hell for society. Well, ladies and gentlemen, my feet are getting tired, and you're probably getting tired too. I came in 1835 on the tails of Haley's Comet. It's coming again pretty soon. And I expect to go out with Haley's Comet. Oh, I'll be so disappointed if I don't go out with Haley's Comet. The Lord could say, look there, those two undefinable freaks. They came in together, and they shall go out together. Oh, I'm looking forward to that. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and good night. Oh, you're a lovely audience. I'll never in my whole lifetime ever, before, during, and after, ever have a lovelier and more wonderful audience than you folks have. We love you all, and we'd like to tell you that over there we've arranged with Parkin and myself, we've arranged for a little cookies and a little punch. We were going to do mint juleps, but I understand that the alcohol board kind of frowned upon that, so I hope you had a good time. We'll be over there.